Hey everybody, how's it going today? It's Don Cruikshank here from DC Leadership Training and Consulting, and what I want to talk to you about this morning is leading in crisis. How do you lead well in crisis? And we're October 2020 here, and as many of you are facing, you're facing probably COVID numbers rising. I don't really want to talk about COVID. That's not the point of today's conversation. That's just contextualizing and helping you understand, an idea of crisis. So we're not going to really talk about COVID, but many of you are experiencing numbers climbing. Here in Manitoba, we're working on a yellow, an orange, and a red system. I'm thankful to be in southern Manitoba, where we have one case in our city of about 14,000 or so. And in our district, we don't have that many cases. Places like Winnipeg have more, and they've moved into the orange zone where more restrictions are imposed upon them. You might be in a different province, you might be in a different state, you might be in a different country. I read this morning that other countries are looking at measures including other types of lockdowns again. But we're going to talk about leading in crisis. And so we know that places are in crisis right now. Here in southern Manitoba, we're fortunate enough that we're not in crisis, but you watching, you might be, and God forbid, but it is possible that we could be in crisis if those numbers increase and restrictions are put on us. But anyways, all that to say, that's the lead up, leading in crisis. How do you do it? How do you lead in crisis? Here's the one thing that crisis reveals about leadership. You can tell very quickly those that have been in leadership before and those that have not when crisis arises, okay? When crisis arises, those that have been in leadership, they understand the burden of leadership. They understand that they could make a whole spectrum of decisions. They understand that they're actually going to be criticized for whatever decision they make. So they don't get hung up on if they're going to get criticized or not. You need to know that if you're leading in crisis, you are going to get criticized. So don't get hung up there. You're going to get criticized. Whether you make the right decision, the wrong decision, somewhere in between, someone's going to think it's right, someone's going to think it's wrong, someone's going to think it's in between. So the first key to leading in crisis is don't worry about the criticism. Okay? You want to have the people on your team that are different than you. You want to have people on your team that process information, problem solve, manage change, and face risk in a different way than you do, so that you can hear those other voices as you guys are making decisions, so you can hear other viewpoints as you're making policies or decisions or things like that. But you need to know that wherever you land and wherever your team lands, you guys are going to get criticized. It's just going to happen. Look, I'm on the leadership team at our church. I'm the board chair there. I won't say what church and I won't say what people, because the point isn't to try and embarrass anybody, but the point is just to give some examples here. So we had to shut down church. It was early March 2020, and we had to shut down our church. That was the mandate that came down from the government. We didn't want to. Right? We didn't want to shut down our church. We had to shut down the church, suspend meeting in person, and had to find other ways to do that. We'll talk about that in a bit. We'd find other ways to meet. Many of you probably had to do that as well. And we got criticized for it from our congregation. Not everybody, but some people. And they're criticizing us. Why are you closing down? Why are you bowing to the pressures of government? Why are you this? It's like, guys, we don't have a choice. Like, we're told what we can and can't do, and we're going to follow the laws of the land until those laws become immoral, and this wasn't an immoral law. So we're going to do it. So people criticized us for that. That didn't bother me at all. I knew we were going to get criticized. It's like, it doesn't matter. We're going to make this decision. Then we're a smaller church, so we were able to open up sooner than some larger churches because restrictions started to lift in terms of gathering size and percentage of your building occupancy and how many people you could have and that kind of thing. And we had to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to physically distance these people, and different entrances and hand sanitizers and different washrooms and all the rest of that. You had to figure out the logistics. And one of the things we decided is we're going to do assigned seating. We're going to put the names of people on the chairs, the family names, where people normally sit anyways. Like if you go to a church or a gathering where people normally go, people have their regular spot that they sit anyways. So it's perfect. We're going to do that. We're going to leave some open chairs for guests and whatever, but this way we can have all the chairs spaced out. And so we have the names on there. Guess what? We got criticized. Right? You would think people would be just happy to be back in the church. No, we got criticized for that. how come you guys are doing assigned seating? And, and it just kind of went on like that. It's like, what? Like, look, you want to be open or you want to be closed, okay? Like, you want to be open or you want to be closed? These are the rules and guidelines that we got to follow, and we figure assigned seating is the best way to do it. We got criticized, and, again, didn't bother me, but you need to know in leadership, in crisis, you will get criticized. And like I said earlier, it reveals those that have been in leadership before and those who haven't. And if you have never been in leadership before and you find yourself in leadership now in a moment of crisis, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks. You just got involuntarily enrolled in the School of Hard Knocks. There's no introductory classes. There's no introductory week where you get to go on campus and meet some people and have some parties. There's none of that. You're thrown into full-on hard initiation. Welcome to school. Welcome to class. Class is in session. The other thing you need to do when you're leading in crisis is you need to be able to make the hard decisions, okay? You got to be able to make hard decisions. Whatever that decision is, it's probably going to be hard, and you need to make it. People don't want to be left wavering and floundering and wondering what's going to happen. You got to make the decision. I'm not saying just make it fast. I'm saying don't take too long. Make sure that you own the decision and your leadership group owns the decision, but you're going to have to make a hard decision. Look, your organization, your business, whatever industry you're in, exists for whom first? For your employees first, or your customers or your members first? Which one? It's not for your employees first. Your business does not exist first for your employees. Now, look, don't hear me wrong. Do not hear me wrong. I am all about treating employees as best as you can. I hate this thing that I've called transactional leadership because I've been employed in places where it's been transactional leadership, where the leader there only cares about me because of what I can give them. I'm totally against transactional leadership, but your business, your organization, it exists first for the customers, the members, and the clients. And that means in crisis, you're gonna actually have to make some hard choices, probably regarding your employees. Okay, now that might mean that you have to fire an employee or more. You might have to lay off an employee or more. You may have to give an employee or more a pay cut. Those are the hard choices that you're gonna have to make for your business, for your organization. You're gonna get criticized for it, but you gotta make that choice. It's a hard choice, but here's the thing, do the best by your people while you're doing that you can. So if you find yourself in a position where you need to fire somebody or more, lay off some people or more, you need people to take pay cuts, okay? Try to be as generous with those people as possible. And I mean as generous with time, okay? You got to make the decision. You can tell them, hey, here's the decision that we're making regarding your role, but we're going to give you a bunch of notice ahead of time. So it's not just you walk in tomorrow and now you're laid off, now you're fired, now you have a pay cut. Okay, be as generous with time as possible and be as generous with resources as possible when you're making these hard choices. And people will respect that. They may not appreciate the hard choice that had to be made, but they will respect the fact that you were as generous with time and as generous with resources toward them while you had to make that hard decision while you were leading in crisis. We might do a couple of videos on this series, but I do want to wrap it up. But I want to say this before we wrap up leading in crisis. At some point in time, the crisis is going to be over, okay? You're not going to be leading through crisis the whole time. At some point, it's going to be over. It could be weeks, could be months, could be years, but at some point it's going to be over, okay? With COVID here, we don't really know when it's going to be over. Some places thought it was over and then there was a restart up, and whether you think that COVID is made up, whether you think it's all legitimate, whether you think the government overreacts, underreacts, or reacts just right, you do have restrictions placed on you by the government. And so whatever you think about that, that's just the fact of the matter, and you got to learn to lead in that time. But at some point in time, it's all going to be over. It's going to be over. It's going to be done, right? We don't really hear people talking about SARS anymore. We don't really hear people talking about H1N1 anymore, swine flu. At some point in time, the crisis, whether it's COVID or whatever you're leading in, it's going to be done. And how are you going to lead from that point forward is really important. You need to figure out what are you going to change and what are you going to keep. Because there's some things that you've adopted in this time of crisis that are actually going to be helpful and beneficial to your organization or your business. And you need to figure out, how do we keep those? How do we keep those things? How do we keep an appetite for it after the crisis is over? How do we keep an appetite that people want that? How do we keep a culture in our business or organization that people are willing to accept that and actually lean on that and use that in a useful and meaningful way? And then there's going to be some things you need to throw out. Okay, you got to figure out, what is that? Crisis is over. What now do we have to, can we and do we have to stop doing? What are we going to throw out? What doesn't need to stay anymore? And you know, maybe it was a policy that you made, maybe it was some type of application, maybe it was some type of innovation that served its purpose and the time is done. But you need to now go and revisit the things that you've put in place while you were leading in crisis, and ask yourself and your leadership team, whether that's your board of directors, whether that's a leadership team, whether that's your members, however your organization or business is led, and figure out, what do we need to keep? What do we need to get rid of? Because you guys want to keep as efficient and as effective as possible. And those things that you implemented during crisis that were necessary and needed and helpful, some of those things will be necessary and needed and helpful after crisis, but some of those things are actually going to be hindrances to you now. And so as good as they were for the time, now you must discard them. So those are the things to think about while you're leading in crisis. I'm sure we're going to do some more videos on this topic. As always, if you'd like the video, please subscribe to our channel. Please like the video, share it around, whether that's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you see it. We're on all those platforms. Thanks for watching. We hope that your day is super successful. If you want us to come into your business or organization and help you guys to be more successful than you are today, please check out our services offered. There will be a link in the comment section below. And if you don't see a service offered that you're interested in, we will custom build one for you. So make sure to reach out to us for that. Thanks, guys. Have a very successful day, and bye for now.